Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Gratitude Shift Wednesday. It's Gratitude Shift Wednesday. And today we're talking about releasing the roles that don't fit. All right. This session is really about identity freedom, right? Realizing that the roles you've been playing in your life might no longer be serving your growth, your purpose, or yourself, the person you are today. So for many, for many of us, certain roles like the fixer or the pleaser, um, the caregiver, the problem solver, how the strong one, right? Are really roles that we've carried from childhood, okay, from our relationships and sometimes from societal expectations. But as you evolve, guess what? These roles can become burdens. Okay, these roles can become burdens, keeping you stuck in real patterns that don't align with who you are becoming. All right. And, a big part of the work I do is working with people and how to really change, right? How to, I would say, mature into a different role, right? It's not about judging these roles that we play because we needed to be that, for the ecosystem, we needed to be that for our family and things like that. Good morning, brother. Right? We needed to be those things. But as like life starts to evolve, we have to learn that we have to evolve with life. All right. So the purpose for today's session is to really focus on releasing the roles that really no longer serve you. All right. Again, I know that this and we're going to talk about it, right? It's going to cause some emotion, which is why again I encourage you, if you're feeling this way, if you're feeling the dis-ease and a disconnect because you no longer want to play these roles, right? To seek out support so you can do it in a healthy manner. All right. These again, these identities could have been inherited, right? Roles that we took on out of obligation and even out of survival strategies that once protected us. I remember working with one of my clients who her parents got a divorce, right? When she was in her teenage years. And, the parents to their own understanding, right? The kids were teenagers. So they had divorce. So the parents really, really just tried to do what they needed to do. So they felt like the kids could manage themselves. And what that did was that put her in a position where she had to what? Look out for the family. Well, at least that's what she felt, right? Because now mom was gone, dad was gone. The understanding of how the family used to work, it no longer works like that. And so she assumed, right, this role as parent, as the strong one, as the responsible one. And in her 30s, guess what? Now it's like, I don't want to be that anymore. Actually, I didn't even want to be that when I was the teenager, but I had to be it. And it made her resentful, right? But she kept being it because she felt like that's what her siblings needed, right? And that's what the family needed. Okay. So again, some of these roles we have went into just out of survival strategy, all right, that once protected what? The family, you, um right, the dynamic that you were used to. All right, but it's important to understand that your role doesn't define who you are. All right, and the authentic you exists beyond this role that you had to play. All right, the true you extends beyond that. And I think that's the burden, right? Because a lot of times you are you feel like people don't know the real you, right? People are not seeking you, they're seeking the you know the shiny thing, the thing you can offer. Okay, and then that becomes the thing that you don't want to offer it anymore. But guess what? You still offering it, and you still offering it, and you still offering it. So it's time to really step out of these limited identities and really align with who you are today and who you are becoming. All right. All right. Because the roles you've been given are playing that you have been playing can shift, right? Your identity. All right. So just say, we hear a lot of people talk about their introvert extroverts or extrovert introverts or all of these things that may not be aligned with the role that you have assumed, right? So maybe you are an introvert, but your family expects you to be the person that's, in everybody's face, or doing a lot of stuff, and it's really costing you a lot of energy. And as you're getting older, and I want to say, costing you a lot of energy. And as you're getting older, you're realizing, like, listen, that's really draining me. It's interesting because my friends and I were on the phone last night because there's a graduation next week that I will be attending, and we were talking about having brunch. And one of my friends just volunteered to everybody, like, hey, you cook. And it was so known that, listen, I cook because I have to, like, I have a family. Like, if I'm going on a trip, though, that's not something that I would choose to do. And I love that, right? I love the honesty of our family, I mean, of my family, which is my extended friend peer group, because we're going to be honest. But how many of you guys are sometimes given a task, or just collectively, like, you're going to do this thing, and then you just assume that responsibility and go into performance when that's not truly what you want to do, but because you're known for that, because you've always been that way, right? You just say, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And then you do it begrudgingly. Listen, this is all about gratitude, all right? You are allowed to change, to grow, to release what no longer fits. All right. So gratitude is this bridge. And gratitude for this lesson, you have gratitude for the lessons that these roles gave you, and the grace to release them, creating a space for what? For your true self to really emerge. All right. For your true self to really emerge. So this conversation, or this life lesson, is really an invitation for you to finally take off the roles that you've worn, not just for the ones that you've chose, but for the ones that no longer align, because they were created in survival. They were created from your family. They were created from cultural expectations, and maybe even trauma. All right. All right. Listen, you are not the role you perform. You are the person beneath that. Okay. Underneath that. And this session, or this lesson, is really here to help you identify that role, right? Identify the roles, like the strong one, the peacemaker, the fixer. Understand how that role once served you, and then release it with some gratitude and not guilt. All right. All right. How do we live in the end? Feel the guilt, but I can still release this. Okay. It's about it's about freedom through what? Through gratitude. All right. Not abandoning the lessons, but really releasing the burdens. All right. Not abandoning the lessons, but truly releasing the burdens. Not blaming the past, right? Not blaming anyone that put you in that condition. Okay. But blessing it. All right. As you step out of it into a more authentic space that what aligns with who you are. All right. So today's session is a pivotal point from performing to becoming. All right, from performing to becoming, from our old narratives to our new identity, right? From this thing that we inherited to this intentional truth that we are looking to live. All right, it is Gratitude Shift Wednesday, and today's title is Release the Roles That Don't Fit You Anymore. And we're talking about patterns and paradigms. All right, my why for this session is because many of us have been playing roles that we didn't choose. All right, or that we chose out of survival, roles that have been assigned to us by culture, by trauma, and by survival. And today's session is really about naming those roles, right? And honoring what they gave us, and then releasing them with some gratitude, okay? Because growth, we know, requires more than just letting go of the pain, okay? It asks us to release outdated identities too, all right? That was the conversation that we had yesterday. And again, for those who were on yesterday, I apologize. We just had a power outage in this area, which knocked everything out. But if you want to see, the session from yesterday, it is up on the YouTube channel at I Am Shaping Solutions, and it is in the group. Okay. It is in the group. Okay. But that conversation yesterday was unlearning, right? It was all about unlearning as a form of healing, and how we truly try to learn more things, right? Without unlearning a part. And so today's session is truly an extension of that, because growth requires us letting go of the pain, and it asks us to release these outdated identities. To really release that is also to unlearn, right, a lot of the behaviors that are associated with those identities, that are associated with those emotions. All right. And that was a real critical part in this, in this series this week about letting go of these old narratives, because the whole unlearning process is kind of similar to, and I say this, we will pick up a book, we will listen to a podcast, you will show up every day for a life lesson and get this new information. And then you're feeling like, why am I stuck? Or why can't I move? Or why are things still happening in such a way? Okay. And a big part of that, I'm gonna give you an analogy, is if you had a yard, right, and it was full of weeds and rocks and all type of debris that just had built up over the years, right? And then you like, I'm gonna go plant a garden out there. All right. And then you go put flowers in that garden. So you go get some roses and some lilies, right? And you go plant it right into those weeds, into those rocks, right? What's going to happen is the weeds is going to take the nutrients, right? And so your flowers may not ever really fully blossom, or you probably can't see the flowers, right? Or the tulips, because of the weeds and the rocks, right? So what you would have to do is you would have to go and clean that ground up, right? You would have to go and till the ground, get the rocks out the way, right? And really give an opportunity for these new flowers that you're putting in the opportunity to really take root and live, right? And flourish and grow. And a lot of times we're not doing that. We're not doing that work of, okay, what is it that I need to unlearn? Right? What is it that I need to unlearn to really, as a part of my healing process? Because I'm reading the books, I'm listening to the podcast, right? I'm doing the work, I'm with the coach, but right, I'm still doing the same thing. And that is the space of, of the unlearning, right? Because growth does require letting go. All right. And it truly acts for you to let go of and release these outdated identities. All right. The awareness and action for today, this session it really invites you to see yourself beyond the roles that you have performed. And but recognition isn't enough. Real transformation, we know, happens when you start choosing who you will become, even if it means releasing roles that once earned you what? Love, acceptance, approval, right? A pat on the shoulder, right? Right? Letting that go and grieving that. So good morning. It is Wednesday, Gratitude Shift Wednesday. And I want to welcome you back. Right. That was an introduction. I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons. All right, with Dr. Sheila Little. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Sheila Little. All right, the creator of the Stop It Now method. Life Lessons is a part of Project Life, and Project Life is an initiative where we turn theory into practice. Okay, where I'm really here to support you through these transitions that are required, right? Or to support you through the process of transition and giving you the support that's required. Okay, that's required. So good morning. Let's take our deep breath on this morning. All right, breathing in and breathing out. Just getting present in the body, feeling our feet on the floor. All right, up our legs, feeling our butt in the seat. Coming up our spine, really feeling our spine, right? All of the nerves in our spine. Like I say, the spine is just such a miraculous gift to us. Okay. So just, and one of the things I want you to do is kind of feel your spine align on this morning, right? Kind of tell it to align itself and see if it will adjust for you, right? See if you will start to naturally kind of pull yourself up, right? And just kind of tell your spine to align, all right? And see if your body will start to align itself, all right? Bringing some attention, right, to your intestines. Listen, if that happened for you, I do want you to know that is the power of your awareness. Okay, so you can tell your body and your spine to align, and you will naturally start to feel your body pull itself up, right, and sit up. All right, so let's give our organs, right, some compassion and some thank yous. Let's bring some space to our heart this morning. Listen, so much is going on in the world. Okay, so much is going on in the world. And again, like I say, you don't have to do anything to get dirty. You don't have to do anything to get stinking, right? But you definitely need to do something to clean that dirt off of you and to get a nice fragrance. And so this weight that we're carrying, right, it's naturally going to happen. It's really nothing we can do to not carry it, but we are responsible for letting this weight go. And a lot of times we carry that weight in our chest, in our lower backs, and on our shoulders. So on this morning, what I want to do is just take some time to release that. All right, because it is a lot going on, and we can't deny that that it's a lot going on, and a lot of times we can't ignore it. All right. All right, so let's give ourselves some space for that to kind of lift off of us. All right, down our arms, really activating our muscles, right? Feeling our elbows, right? If you're feeling some pain in your elbows, we call that tennis elbow, but it's also a way that your body is saying that you may be going past your boundaries and things like that. So if you're feeling some pain in that, just kind of thank your body for giving you that information. All right, and activating your hands up your neck. All right. All right, just feeling your neck kind of align. All right, your lips, your nose, your eyes. All right, bring some softness to your eyes. Like I always say, bring some softness to your ears, right? So you can be able to receive. But today we're going to bring some softness to our eyes too, so we can see something different. All right, so we can see something different. They say that doubt is created in the eyes and faith is created in the ears, right? And so we want to, even though things may be looking a little down and things may not be looking the way we want it to, we want to soften that, right? And know that everything is still working for our good. So let's train our eyes to see the good that's happening for us. All right. And then our ears, softening our ears so we can hear. Okay. So that we can hear what we need to hear to motivate us, to inspire us on this morning. All right. And then our brain, activating our brain. All right. All right. Thanking it for the things that it's doing for us, right? For being the mechanism, right? Yeah, kind of like the motor, right? That's communicating everything that needs to be communicated as we perceive, right? As we perceive our life as something very, 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 very special and divine. All right. And then bringing some attention to our biggest organ, our skin, right? And then the space around our skin, right? So all of the space. And if we're feeling a little tight this morning, just kind of pushing out. And if we're feeling too big, bring it in. All right. And let's breathe one more time. Again, we have a lot going on in the world. There's probably a lot going on in your life. So let's just take some time and just and breathe out. All right. All right. So how are you feeling this morning? Drop a word in the chat. Let me know, how are you feeling on this morning? Listen, I had to pull myself out the bed this morning, right? Like it's just one of those days where I was just like, whew, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, get up, right? Like that was what I had to do. Okay. It's raining outside here. If you're here, I really never saw the sky the way I saw it this morning. It was thundering, as I rode into work this morning. All right. So, how are you feeling on this morning? Listen, I want to talk about who today's show is for. This is for you if you've been performing roles like the strong one, the caretaker, and even a fixer, and you no longer, right? And even when they no longer serve your truth. Okay. So, this is for you if you're really ready to release these expectations and really reclaim your essence. All right. All right. So our powerful quote for this morning is like, you are not abandoning your past. You're just releasing what you've outgrown so that you can trust, right? So that you can breathe, so that you can breathe. All right. So you're not abandoning your past. You're just releasing what's outgrown so that you can breathe, so that your truth can breathe. Right. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about one of my clients. She was always the dependent one in her family. All right. She carried it with pride, you guys. All right. But also it came with some exhaustion. So over time, she realized being the reliable one cost her her own needs. And when she finally said, I'm tired, right? What she found was that she didn't actually fall apart. She woke up, right? Really releasing the role didn't erase her loyalty. It actually restored her identity and allow her to show up more full, more vibrant, in a more giving way. All right. And I think that is that's the thing. What's coming up in my spirit is like putting the cart before the horse. So I think that when we're younger and we get thrust into these roles or we get pushed into these roles, it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. Like you had to grow up and you had to be an adult at a very young age, right? To survive, to thrive, right? And then you get older, and that's what the brain has learned how to do, right? And it has rewarded you in some way, shape, or form. And now it's like, yeah, it's I need to do something different. That's the cart before the horse. I wasn't even prepared for that. So now I need to learn how to what? Take care of me so I can be the person that's, you know, in charge of my life. All right. That my no can be no and my yes can be yes, that I can stand up for myself, right? That I can feel whatever I need to feel, right? And just really let that go. And again, not judge it as any way cruel or anything like that, but know that that was a part of who I needed to be at that time. And now I have to be something different. I remember we talked about the 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 tree, but what I want to talk about is the rose. Okay. Listen, the rose needs a stem. All right. But if the stem always wanted to be the stem, and the stem is like, I just don't want to stop being the stem, you would never get the flower, right? So at some point in your life, you have to let go of the stem, right? So that the rose can blossom, so that the flower can become, all right? And a lot of us are not experiencing the becoming of the flower in this analogy because we're so held on to being the stem and we don't want to let it go. Now, what does that stem represent? It represents all of these roles that you have taken on that brought you to become the person that you are, right? It's a part of your evolution. So we don't have to judge it, but now there's a blossoming that's ready to take place in your life, that's ready to take place in you. And you're like, yeah, but I'm a stem. I don't want to let this go. I feel some grief. I feel some angst. I feel like if I let this go, then what's going to happen, right? And it's like, yeah, but there's something trying to emerge out of you. There's a flower trying to blossom out of you, and you won't even allow that flower to blossom, to bud itself. All right. Does that make sense? Does that make sense with a heart in the chat for me? All right. Okay. And it's okay, right? It's okay to allow your flower to blossom, whatever your flower is. If you're a rose, if you're a tulip, whatever that is, right? We have to let go of the stage of being the stem. All right. So here's our heart check-in. I want you to think about I want you to pause. All right, pause. And I want you to think about what's one role you've been playing that no longer aligns with who you really are. All right. And what are you afraid would happen if you stop playing that role? Okay. What are you afraid of that will happen if you stop playing that role? All right. Listen, here's some things that I want you to know that's essential for you to know. All right. That as you start to really let go of these narratives, right? And really start to release these roles that don't fit. Letting go will trigger some grief. All right. And I want you to know that that's okay. All right. So again, going from the stem to the flower, you will feel some grief. Okay. When you release roles, even the ones that you resent, you guys, I want you to know that you're not just walking into your freedom, you're walking through grief. All right. You may grieve who you had to be loved. You may grieve the relationships that built around that version of you. You may grieve the identity that gave you that purpose, even if it was painful. All right. Listen, why this matters, because grieving the role is not a weakness. It's kind of like a divine, and I'm saying divine in the sense of it's a part of the process. All right. It's a part of the letting go process. So I need you to know that you can honor what was without staying stuck in it. And a lot of us, we just don't want to go through the grieving process. We stay in denial. We stay stuck because we don't want to feel that. And again, it's a part of the process. You're going to grieve. All right. And we can grieve and live in the end. I could grieve and be grateful for this new person that I'm coming into. Right. I talk about the experience of wanting the new job, or you wanting the new house, or you wanting the new thing, and you getting it, and you feeling like it's going to be the most exciting time of your life. And right after you get it, you may go into a slump. You may feel like this level of emotion and this sadness. And it's really because your body is grieving, and your mind and your intelligence understands that you're grieving that old version of you, that you had to be at that job, and you have to grieve that before you can appreciate this new space that you're in. But a lot of times people will sabotage this new space because they may feel like, well, I don't feel all the way ready for this, or, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling this feeling. And it's like, yeah, because you're grieving your old life. That's why you have to stop and neutralize yourself and get into a neutral state before you actually pick up this newness, right? Right. So the first thing we do when we start something new is stop the old and neutralize so that your body can grieve, right? So your body can grieve that experience and then trust yourself to feel that grief, right? Before you start this new relationship with whatever it is, with your new mindset, with your new partner, with your new home, with your new way of being, whatever it is, right? There is a stopping, a stopping and neutralizing space so that you can grieve. All right. All right. And that is where it's important to get a coach and get a therapist, right? So you can talk through that so they can encourage you to stay anchored where you're at, right? Don't abandon this new space. And let's really talk about some of this stuff so we can what? We can unlearn some behaviors, we can reset, right? And we can honor that. All right. Another thing I want you to know is that some people will miss the old you, and that is not your responsibility. All right. Again, so mind you, you're grieving your old you. So now we have to allow space for other people to grieve as well. All right. So as you evolve, right, others may react. The version of you that performed, that served, that stayed silent made life easier for them. Right. It made life easier. It made life more. If it wasn't easier, it made life more more safe. It made life, they knew what to expect. All right. And so by you changing, it's disrupting that for them. So letting go of the role may mean letting go of their expectations as well. All right. This is where many people start to retreat and go back, right? Because they don't want to feel that, or they feel this judgment from their community or their loved ones that's saying, hey, you're changing, or, you're not the same anymore, or whatever. And so you feel this tug, or this emotional tug from people. And so you may go back. Listen, disappointing others is the price of no longer abandoning yourself. That is the first cost. All right. It's more of an investment. All right. Disappointing others is an investment in you. Okay. All right. Because you're going to come back around, right? They're going to see the fullness of you. Okay. So in this sense, leaving the stem and becoming the bud of the flower, people may not understand that because they haven't saw the fullness of the flower. Like, why are you doing that? All right. But when your fullness blossom, right? Or when you're changing from the trunk to the apple, right? They may not understand listen, I got to stop being this trunk and become these branches, right? But when you bear the apple, okay, and now they can eat from that place, and you have it for them to give, you have it for them to get, all right, then they're going to come around, the ones who should, right, and who will, all right, and the ones who want never was meant to be. So disappointing others is a price, right, of you no longer abandoning yourself. I also want you to know this, that your nervous system may resist freedom at first. All right. A lot of times we're asking for things, that we don't really understand fully, the responsibility that comes with that. And freedom is something that your nervous system has to get used to. So safety often feels like familiarity, even when it's dysfunctional, even when it's controlled chaos. So when you stop overgiving or being the fixer, right, or being a strong one, your body may panic. All right. That's not failure. That's the rewiring process. All right. So freedom feels foreign until it starts to feel familiar. So I encourage you to keep going. I remember the first time I didn't have to work on a Saturday. Now, mind you, from the time of 13, right? I worked. I worked when I got out of school, you know, all the way. So 13, 14, 15, 16, people know, like I came home to a house full of people. All right. And that was on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. All right. And I did that. And then I started college when I graduated high school. So like my schedule was full, all up until I was 27. All right. 27, I got my first job. I stepped away from doing hair, from being a hairstylist. I stepped away from that. And so it was my first real job, So I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And that Saturday, I woke up and I didn't have anything to do. And when I tell you, it felt like, what is going on? The first time I had a job when I worked as a counselor at Delta, I feared that they were going to fire me because I was so busy as a therapist in my therapy career, like, back to back clients, seeing people. And then, I went to work at this college that was like a slower paced, college. And we had our, high enrollment times and things like that. But it was times where I just literally sat in my office and, you know, went through students' files or did work that it was just very, very soft work, right? And my nervous system was like, they gonna fire you because you ain't doing nothing. And even though I was doing work, it was just not compared to the level of work that I had experienced from 13 to 30, right? And so that was an adjustment that my body had to make. And I was judging it like something's wrong, like I'm gonna get fired. I got scared, all of that stuff. And then when I learned this, because I didn't know this back then, but when I learned this, it was like, oh, that is what I was going through. So if you're going through that, know that your nervous system may resist freedom at first, okay? Because safety often feels familiar, even when it's dysfunctional. All right. It's what you know. And when you change, right, the body is going to respond. Okay. The body is going to respond. So freedom does feel foreign until it feels familiar. Okay. So I encourage you to keep going if you're feeling that. All right. Another thing I want you to know is that releasing a role means reclaiming your voice. All right. So releasing these roles actually can be reframed as I'm reclaiming my voice. All right. So roles are often silent strategies. All right. And you muted yourself to really maintain the peace, the predictability, or praise. All right. Now that you're releasing those roles, guess what? Your voice will rise. And it may shake at first, and it may not be as strong as you like. It may not be as strong, but continue to go through the process and let it be, right? Let it be liberated. Let it grow, let it strengthen. All right. Because remember, these roles that you had silenced it. All right. So you didn't use it as much. So your no may sound or may feel a little shaky now, right? Because you never used it before. All right. But the more you start to use it and the more you start to grow with it, then the more you will strengthen it. Okay. And then for this category, the last thing I want to say is, or for this section, the last thing I want to say is that you need a new identity, a new definition of identity. All right. You do need a new definition of identity. Many people think that if they're not the strong one, then who are they? All right. If they're not the mom, then who are they? If they're not the big sister that's solving all the problems, who are they? If they're not the wife, just say you're going through a relationship, like a divorce or something like that. Well, if I'm not the wife, then who am I? If I'm not the husband, then who am I? Right. You may be dealing with some empty nest where your kids are moving out. Well, if I'm not the mom, then who am I? Right. If I'm not the strong friend, then who am I? Right. If I'm not the hard worker. Right. So as we start to lose these roles that we have identified as who we are, right, it can be very scary. All right. But you do need a new identity. And you probably need help forming that. All right. So this is truly life's invitation, right? Not to let go, but to become, right? This is the power of this moment in your life because you get to form that identity. Listen, identity isn't who you've been for others, it's who you're becoming for yourself. And that's the power of this moment because you actually get to, be curious, right? And if you don't have the language and if you don't have the ability or you feel like you don't, because you do, right? But if fear or something like that is in the way, right, reach out and get some help so that you can start to identify and the things that you need to build this identity or step into this identity that you are becoming. All right. All right. Listen, the roles that you've played were necessary at one time. All right. But that doesn't mean that they are true for you on today. And I think that that's just really the simplicity of this whole session. So gratitude on this gratitude shift Wednesday, I want to say that gratitude is the bridge between honoring your past and really embracing who you are becoming. All right, holding on to outdated roles really trap you in emotional loops that we're going to talk about tomorrow. And those loops of overgiving, the resentment and the exhaustion, right, that you're currently carrying. All right, releasing roles is not about rejecting them. It's not about rejecting anyone that even come with them, but it is about remembering. All right, remembering who you were before you survive, remembering who you were before survival made you perform. All right, when you were little, you had a dream about your life and who you were, intended to be, and life came in, right, and shifted some things and changed some things. And so now it's about going back to that moment of, I had some dreams and some aspirations for my life, and now it's time for me to invest in that. All right, listen, one of my clients said letting go of being a strong one, letting go of the strong one role allow her to actually ask for help, right? And for the first time in her life, guess what? That moment. So she, the strong one, really stopped her from asking for help. And so when she dropped that role for the first time in her life, she was able to ask for help. All right. And that shifted everything. Studies show that role rigidity, right, especially in family systems, can lead to chronic stress, identity, confusion, and emotional burnout. Flexibility in role support is good for your psychological health and your growth, meaning I don't always have to be that for everybody, right? I can be flexible. All right. um you know I love this title. I love this particular lesson because it really is about you knowing that you're not here to keep on playing these outdated roles. You're here to be real, to be free, and to be whole. All right. And I this is a true testament. And I'm not saying that nobody put me in this position, but when I was 13, many of you guys know, if you live in my community, if you came to my house, if you're a family member, that I assumed the strong one. All right. So I became the breadwinner for my family, right? And not just my mom, but for my grandparents, right? And it felt good, right? It felt good to be able to solve problems, to be able to help people, to be able to change the trajectory of the experiences that were happening into my life. And when my cousins came up, I could send for them and I can provide them with a different experience than I had as a youth, right? And then my aunts would give me, praise, and my uncles would be like, good job, right? Now that worked for my teenage years in my 20s. All right. And then I started to have my own kids. Right. And so now I needed to, switch to from being the provider for, my immediate family, from for my extended family, which would be my grandparents and all of that, to now caring for my kids, and it stretched me because I'm a mother and I'm a daughter that's taking care of my mom, and I'm a granddaughter that's looking out for my grandparents, and I'm a student, and I'm a worker, and I'm a community advocate, right? And so all of these things, essentially started to be a lot. All right. And then I had to learn how to go back and have gratitude for those moments, because they did give me energy. They did get me up in the morning. They did inspire me to want to have more and do more. Probably for the wrong reasons, but nevertheless, it got me up. It got me to where I am today. But in my late 20s and the early 30s, it just became to be too much. And I talk about, like, even taking on relationships and friendships that pressed on those wounds, right? Of, are you going to take care of me? Always being the one to give. And then what I realized is that I had an issue with receiving. So it wasn't that people didn't offer, it's just that I didn't accept the yes, because I had a judgment around that. All right. So releasing these roles that didn't fit was a journey, right? And I talk about how I did it in a very unconventional way. I just dropped everything, right? Like, listen, y'all can have it, right? It wasn't like a breakdown or anything like that. It was just like, okay, my house going into foreclosure. Okay. I can't get the car out the shop. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure this out. But guess what I ain't gonna do? I'm not going to like stress my mind out and try to figure. I'm not putting the pieces together anymore. I'm letting it all fall. And it was falling. Like it was everything was falling. Like, and I really realized at that time how much I was holding up. And as things were falling, it wasn't just affecting my life, it was affecting a lot of people's life. I mean, so much so that people wanted to do interventions like, Sheila, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. I wasn't fine holding this stuff up, but I'm fine and we're going to let it fall. And what I tell people is that I found the eye of the storm, right? I got right in the eye of that tornado. So I saw my life being ripped apart, day by day, relationship by relationship, moment by moment, judgment by judgment. And then I just sat right in the eye of it. And I truly had a peace beyond understanding during that time of my life. Right. But I was ready to release these roles that just didn't fit. Okay. Right. They just didn't fit for me anymore. And then it was like, okay, well, who are you now? And that was a very scary thing. It still is because I'm still becoming, right? I'm still becoming and learning myself and learning my voice and all of those things. Okay. And I feel like that's just going to be a part of the journey. All right. It's going to be a part of the journey. And I'm encouraging you to listen, that heaviness, that apathy, that all of that, you can live a different space. Okay. Because listen, both sides of the equation is going to be emotional. And I have to say this. All right. When you're going after the life you want, that's emotional. You know what I mean? I'm building a life that's changing the trajectory of the experiences of myself and the people I serve. All right. That is a lot. That's emotional. Sometimes I cry. It's overwhelming. I get frustrated. I want to kick. I want to do all of that. But that emotion to me is more of an investment into my life. Now, if I wasn't building this business that was making a difference in the life of myself and the people that I serve, right? And I'm just sitting at home kicking and screaming. I did that, right? But it wasn't an investment, right? It was more of a weight. And I didn't know what to do with that weight. So much so that it quieted my voice. It took me away from the things that I enjoyed. All right. And so I'm like, you're going to kick and scream on either side, but one is an investment. One you yield a return on, and the other one is just, it's like weeds, right? It's like the weeds and the roses. Both of them come up from the same soil. All right. From the same soil. All right. So which side of the equation are you going to choose? Right. But both sides have emotions. All right. And don't let nobody fool you about that. All right. Because life is life and then life is happening. On this side, though, you do get support. You do open your heart up. You do get to feel true connection and true ease and those type of things that you really desire. It may feel like you never was going to be able to experience. And there's a freedom in your voice and all of those things. All right. So there is a difference. There is a difference. All right. Okay. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, put a 1 in the chat for me. Okay. Listen, we know that on Wednesday we talk about patterns. All right. So this session really speaks directly to the patterns that we perform to really maintain connections, to avoid rejection, and to keep peace. All right. And those were a lot, like doing that last part, because by the time I was 29, I had all my sons in my 20s. All right. And I had went to school, bachelor's degree, master's degree, all of that. And there was this connection, right? That I wanted to keep with these roles. All right. And a lot of the clients that I work with have this same, it's so hard for them to even fathom walking away. They're so miserable, but it's still this narrative that is like, but I gotta stay here, because they need me. And I don't want them to feel like I don't love them. And I don't want them to feel this. And I have to switch that to, well, what do you want them to feel? And what do you want to feel? All right. And then let's do the courageous thing and go after that. All right. All right. So again, this session speaks directly to the patterns that we perform to maintain connections, to avoid rejection, or to keep our peace. Right. So these identity roles are not you. They are responses, right? Responses to situations that came up. And a lot of times these roles were built as a response to what? Lack of responsibility from the individuals, lack of awareness, right? Lack of skill sets from the parents, from your community, right? And then you had to come in and be this bridge, All right. And it's time to really shift that. So here's some essential truths about this. Listen, about letting go of outdated narratives and really patterns and paradigms is what we're talking about today. Listen, your old story was a strategy, not a sentence. All right. What that means is that the narratives that you have been living with, like I have to be strong, I don't deserve more, I always have to hold it together, right? I'm not allowed to feel, right? Was a way to really cope. Okay. It was a way to cope, not a reflection of what? Your truth. All right. It just was a coping skill, but it's not how you really feel. All right. You are allowed to outgrow the strategy that got you through situations and choose a new story for yourself. All right. That's based and aligned in your truth, where you can talk about this weight, you can talk about the feeling, right? And not so much throwing other people under the bus. It's not that you're throwing your friends and your family under the bus. You're just honoring the space. That's very true for you. Okay. And when you start to honor that, then your friends and family will too. All right. And community. Number two, patterns are not personality traits. They're survival blueprints, you guys. So listen, people pleasing, procrastination, over functioning, they aren't your personality. All right. They're not your personality. They're the result of unprocessed stories. All right. You learn these behaviors to really stay safe. All right. You learn these to stay safe. And now it's time to unlearn them so that you can free yourself up. All right. Repetition doesn't mean alignment. So just because you've been doing something for a long time, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing for you. All right. Just because you've been doing this thing forever and this is how you've been doing it, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing for you. Listen, familiar doesn't always mean faithful. All right. It just means that it went unchallenged. Right. Nobody challenged it. Okay. But that doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. All right. Every narrative lives in your body. This is huge. I really want you to know this. Every narrative lives in your body. Your habits, your reactions, and even your posture often reflects the belief that you haven't spoken out loud. Okay. So letting go of the story also means releasing how you live or how these stories live in your nervous system, because they're all stored in your body. And as you start to change your story, guess what? You release it, which is again why you feel lighter, which is again why my clients come and I'm going to tell you they feel lighter. One conversation and they like, man, I needed that. Right? Because the story switch. And as that story starts to switch, then they feel this sense of relief because that story now had the opportunity to release out their body. All right. Again, another thing, the role you performed isn't the truth that you were born with. Okay. So you became the strong one. You became the fixer. You became the peacemaker to either earn belonging or because you had to. All right. Now that you get now that you get to belong to yourself first, guess what? There's no performance required anymore. All right. You did all of those things to belong to what? A community, to a family dynamic. All right. To a culture. But now that you belong to you as this grown age of an adult, right? You don't need to perform anymore. Right? Because you belong to yourself first. All right. All right. A couple of more things. Paradigms shape your perception. Remember, paradigms is the lens that we see the world through. Your core beliefs are the lens you see life through. All right. So the core beliefs and how you believe is how you see life. Listen, and some of us see life very shady, you know. All right. Listen, if your paradigm is I'm not worthy, which is a shady lens, every opportunity looks like a risk instead of a gift. Every opportunity looks doom and gloom, right? Because of the belief. It's because of how you see it. Listen, you don't need to fix your life. You just need to clear the lenses. You need to change your paradigm. All right. And that is what that emotional intelligence course is all about. All right. And so if you're looking to change your paradigm, make sure you put emotional intelligence in the chat and I can send you the link so you can sign up for that course. All right. Number 7, shame makes you cling to stories that no longer fit. All right. Listen, sometimes we stay loyal to lies. We stay loyal to lies because we're ashamed to admit that we've outgrown them. And sometimes we're just ashamed to live in our truth. Listen, so we will stay loyal to lies. Gratitude, though, dissolves shame and creates space for truth to move in. And sometimes this not just happening with you, it's happening with other people too. Like some people want you to lie to them. Some people would rather you live a lie. Some people would rather you speak a lie. And some of you would rather be living in a lie. All right. But we can bring gratitude to dissolve any shame that you feel. And again, gratitude is just grateful, right? It couldn't have been any different. What lesson did I get? Right? I made it through that. However you want to extend, but it's really just receiving that as a part of your life. All right. And this creates a space to what? For you to move, for create space for truth to move in. All right. And for trust to move in. But I want you to think about gratitude as allowing. Again, I've been talking about these Chinese handcuffs. And gratitude is just saying, okay, that happened. Thank you. Right. And letting the cuffs off. Right. And that is so hard for some people to just even fathom. But you can do it even in that it's hard to do. Okay, thank you. And you can live in the end. I have some resistance and I have some allowing. All right. All right. And then that's going to teach the nervous system that everything is not going to fall apart by me allowing this to be true for me. All right. And you slowly teach the nervous system that, and you live in this duality of of right or wrong, or resistance and allowance. You live there for a minute, right? Until you teach the nervous system that it's okay, right? This is safe. Life is not going to fall apart by me allowing or accepting this as being true. All right. A couple of more. Transformation isn't betrayal, you guys. Again, you hear me say this all the time. Letting go of who you were isn't betrayal. It is alignment. Again, letting go of your stem season so that you become a flower is not betrayal to the stem. Okay, letting go of roots so the tree can become the trunk, and letting go of the trunk so the branches can branch out, and letting go of the branch stage so that the leaves can happen, and letting go of the leaves so that the apple can come. That is not betrayal. That's alignment. It's already been programmed in you for these stages to emerge, for them to happen. And the reason why we're not fully growing or unlocking our potential is because we're not allowing this new part of us to emerge, this new part of us to be expressed. We're holding back. We want to stay the trunk. We want to stay the branches. We want to stay loyal to that part of us. And it's like, listen, in the seed in you was already timing for this change to happen. So let's just allow it. Listen, you don't owe your old story a lifetime subscription. You owe your divine person a fresh new start. That's what you owe your future. All right. You don't owe your past anything. All right. Something else I want you to know is that old stories cost more than you realize. Again, there's an emotional, there's a spiritual, and even a financial cost to staying in outdated identities. That's who you was, but that's not who you are anymore. And when you stay there, you're paying a cost. So every time you say yes to your past, you're essentially saying no to your future. All right. All right. And last but not least, you are a author now. So even though your first chapter was written in pain, pressure, and even by others, listen, you hold the pen today. All right. You hold the pen today. Your new paradigm is the permission, not the punishment. So I want you to write according to who you are today and not who you were. Okay. Yesterday, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You get the ability to write from a new voice, from a new perspective. Okay, if that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right, your biblical wisdom on this morning, Ephesians 4:22 through 24. You were taught to put off your old self and to be made new in the attitudes of your minds, and to put on a new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. You guys, listen, this isn't about sin or mortality. This is really about identity. All right. This verse really speaks to an inner permission to shed old programming. Think of the roles like the fixer, the strong one, and the peacemaker. These are parts of your old self, right? Your old self. And this verse is referring to. All right. There's not they are not who you were created to be. They were who you had to become to be accepted, to feel safe, and to be seen. But the whole idea of putting off this old self in this context, right, is really letting go of those roles that you had to play to survive or to just survive. All right. To release the version of you that was shaped by obligation, right, and not alignment, and to really start to choose to walk in this renewed mindset where you are worthy just for being the person that you are today. All right. All right. All right. So this verse isn't about, or this verse isn't calling you to become something brand new. It's really inviting you to return to the version of you and yourself that always that was there underneath these roles, all right, underneath the wounds and the pressure to perform. All right. The God in you is your truth. All right. And every time you remove the mask, guess what? You start to honor that truth. And every time you allow or you unlearn or you start to pull back, you allow more of you to be experienced. All right. Our promise verse, which is the the promise, right? Is Second Corinthians 3:17. Where the spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Okay. Now the Lord is the spirit, and where the spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Listen, this verse is your permission slip to be set free. Okay, because where the spirit lives, which is in you, is not just in the heavens. Okay, it's in you. All right, so there is a power to release the roles and shed um the shoulds, the could have beens, the would have beens, right? And really stop performing. It's really not about finding freedom out there. It's realizing that freedom is already in you, you guys. All right. Waiting for what? For you to agree with it. All right. Waiting for your agreement. And you don't need to earn this. You need to start rehearsing the roles that have been weighing you down. All right. This is called internal alignment. All right. And the spirit lives in you. Then you are, if the spirit lives in you, then you already are equipped to what? Evolve. Freedom isn't something you strive towards, it's something that you allow to what? To happen. It's something like a blossoming. You allow it to happen. And every time you say this role no longer fits, guess what? You're walking more and more into freedom. All right. So essentially, these verses are not about obedience, they're about ownership. All right. Ephesians 4, it is an invitation to really take off this costume, okay? The one life gave you, the one trauma dressed you in. And then Second Corinthians 3:17 is a reminder that once you set yourself free, you are not naked, you are liberated, all right? Of because what truth has left behind. And that truth is that you are always free. All right. There is a God that dwells in you. If you don't want to perform anymore, right? That presence is there. And God wants your presence, your becoming, and your boldness to return to you. All right. So this session isn't about fixing something that was broken. It's really about freeing what the thing that has burdened you. You are not who you had to be, and you you're who you're finally ready to be. Okay, you're not who you had to be, but you're who you're finally ready to be. All right, so I have a question for you before we put this in practice. How does this verse really help you to reshape the way you see the roles that you've been carrying? All right. I know that these roles that we're carrying is a part of a system of things and how things move and how things go. All right. Just real quick, my son, we had to send his car to the shop the last couple of months because the radiator, because it just kept overheating. And they're fixing it, they're putting the radiator in, and they, fix all that stuff. And so we get it from the shop, finally feeling like he can drive it. And he gets to his grandfather's house, and boom, like the whole bottom of it just explodes, right? Like all of the antifreeze just burst out or whatever. Okay. And and uh and so he's like, I'm just tired. I just got it, right? Like I'm ready to give it up. And a part of me was ready to give it up too, but I called the mechanic and I'm like, hey, what could be the problem here? What do you think the issue is? And he was like, well, I got to do this pressure test. Why I'm saying this though is that um that is time. It was time in this particular car to change the parts. All right, to change the parts. And what was happening is, as these new parts are coming in, it's putting pressure on these old parts. All right. So now it's like, in a sense, like, okay, we fixed the engine, and then that engine, uh, we fixed the engine, and then we had to go fix the radiator, and then the radiator now put pressure on these other parts, and it's just like this domino effect that's happening in this car. And that's what happens in us. Okay. I'm giving this example because I feel like that's what happens in us. When you fix your mindset, remember, your current mindset is supporting the dynamics and the things that you are now. All right. When you fix your mindset, then guess what? That means that something is going to probably break as a consequence of this. All right, of this mindset. And then you're going to have to go fix that. And then something else is going to, like a relationship or something, is going to probably dissipate or need your attention. So this change it truly is a like a domino effect, that as you start to adjust one thing in your life, right, other things kind of start to fall apart. That's going to need your attention. That's going to need you to be aware of, right? That you're going to have to take time, that you probably looked over before, and even in that, what we was finding out is that, like, the radiator had problems before, right? But they had put this stuff in it and kind of sealed it up, right? So this wasn't like the radiator's first time messing up, right? So as you start to fix your mindset, like, these other things in your life are going to fall apart that you probably, taped up or semi-addressed or whatever. But now, with this new mindset, with this new paradigm, with this new way of being, right? Right. When you step away from these roles, you are going to need to address some things in a more healthy, thorough way. Okay. But that is going to bring you so much relief and so much ease and so much fulfillment, the fulfillment that you desire to have in your life, that you're actually seeking. All right. So I don't want you to think about it as work. I want you to think about it as your winning season. All right. That your voice is going to be strengthened in this season once you release these roles that don't fit. All right. So how do we put this to action? All right. What we're going to do is, I want you to write down one role you've outgrown, list 2 lessons it taught you, and then I want you to write a new declaration about who you are becoming. All right. And then, if you're a journaler, here's your journal prompt. What role are you releasing, and what truth are you reclaiming? All right. And your affirmation on this morning is, I release the roles that no longer serve me, and I am free to be my authentic self. All right. And then your daily intention, or your intention for today. Today, I choose to step into truth, not tradition. I release roles and I reclaim what my real self. All right. And if you want a bonus, okay, for the next 24 hours, I want you to resist the urge to really play an old role. When you feel it rise, say, that was survival. This is freedom. All right. And live in that duality. And you know that I'm going to give you a call, a challenge, and a charge. So I'm calling, I'm asking, what role are you choosing to release today? I'm going to challenge you on this morning. How will you act in alignment with your real self this week? And then your charge on today is, you are not the role. They are not your scripts. So go and shape your life. All right. So go and shape your life. Listen, if this session really resonated with you and you are walking away with some insight today, you already know what to do. Drop a fire in the chat and let's celebrate our growth together. All right. Remember, if you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. You can always join the project at SheilaLittle.com/life. I'm so excited about tomorrow's lesson, as we wrap up this session, all about letting go of this old narrative, right? That could be holding you back, as we're learning how to unlock our potential in this month. All right. We're going to talk about energy on a Thursday. Listen, your story can change. You are allowed. Okay. It's time to change the narrative. All right. I want you to know that I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow for that life lesson. All right. Till later. Till later.